squeeze with follow through. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the Fit2Fire Warrior channel. We're back here with Weston. I appreciate his help as always. Listen, for all you beginners out there, and even if you've been shooting for a number of years, it all boils down to the 7 fundamentals of marksmanship. That never changes. There are different ways to teach it and coach it, and there are different nuances, but it's always going to be the same. So what I want to go over is those 7 fundamentals of marksmanship. We'll put that on the screen for you. Let's go over a few things at first. They're going to consist of your stance, your grip, your sight alignment, your sight picture, your breath control, your trigger squeeze, and then your follow through. So let's start at the beginning, right? Let's go over stance. The stance I recommend, we all have a little bit different stance based on our training, experiences, environments, ergonomics, body structure, injuries, but the good default stance would be feet shoulder width apart. We're going to use this as downrange. Feet shoulder width apart, your strong leg or your shooting leg, as he does, slightly back. And I'll tell you why that gives that way. So being shoulder width apart, if your feet are too close together and I push on Weston, he's going to fall over or take a step. That's not a stable shooting platform. If he does not have one leg back and I push on him this direction or this direction, that is not a stable shooting platform. So those are the reasons in which we do it. And then you want to have a slight bend in the knees. That helps with circulation and, of course, movement if you have to move. So, and several other reasons. So, all right, so based on stance, this is the way that I would start somebody off standing. It actually works well for him, works well for me. There are other stances, and I'll put a picture of it. There is isosceles, which is both feet forward, both hands straight out. There is the classic weaver, how I was trained in law enforcement, which never worked for me. That is very bladed to the target. It's not as stable, and you have one support hand under and your primary hand locked out like this. They said that makes us less of a target. Problem is, now we're no longer being protected by our armor. And that's before we had side armor back in the day. So we actually went against that. I did what was called a modified at the time. I liked a slightly bent stance, not full isosceles, and a little bit of a bent isosceles or semi-weavered grip. That's what I've been using ever since. That's why I recommend if you don't know what else to do. Chime in the comments if you do it a different way or you have something that works for you. I'd love to hear it. Isosceles is very, very fast, very stable. A lot of competition shooters like to use that isosceles, but it's different purposes for different things, right? Different strokes for different folks. All right, so second is grip. So go ahead and draw out. The main things you want to do on your grip, first and foremost, is that original purchase that you have on your primary hand on the pistol needs to be high on the back strap or a tang if you're using a revolver. I want no daylight here. Go ahead and make daylight there. Give me some space. Now, if you have daylight, you can see here, and we'll give you some close-up pictures. Look at what it does to the rise of the muzzle. This thing can move, right? Now, go real high on that like we're supposed to, okay? See the difference? Less break in that, right? So that's going to be less deviation in your shooting, a lot more accuracy. So second thing I like about having a high purchase on the pistol is his finger is pretty much directly in line with the bore. That's going to be the most naturally accurate shot that you can make. And sometimes in a gunfight, we may not always have time to look through the sights. It might just be an immediately defensive round going off, and that's going to be incredibly accurate. So you see that we're not using the trigger guard. Some of you can. I know there's some fast shooters that do use it. I don't recommend beginners do it because it will influence the weapon too much left or right. He is hand clasped on the other hand. Now, we're going to turn Weston the other way for a minute, so go ahead and low ready. Spin all the way around. Come back on target. I'll get behind his muzzle. Safety, safety, right? Okay, so now, remove this hand real quick. Okay, now you see how this thumb goes along the frame. He's got that high grip on the back strap. What else on your body matches this angle exactly? Your other hand. So what I say is to grab the pistol, let your other hand just fall into place. Click, and then go ahead and do so. See how that fits right into here? That's what I recommend. And then put your fingers out. These fingers out. These fingers out. And then just collapse the fingers on top of it, okay? Now, there are those that say death grip. death grip right, death grip left. I recommend for your beginning shooters, unless you learn otherwise or practice something else that works better for you, have other experience, is equal grip left and right. What I also recommend is versus death grip is if you death grip it, you will get that front sight shaken too much. That's just a reality of it until you learn to control that. So I recommend if you're gripping it too tight and that front sight's moving a little bit, just loosen your grip ever so slightly. I recommend beginning with a firm grip, what you would do with just your modern handshake. Not crushing a potential wife's father's hand, but a firm grip that you would shake anybody's hand with, okay? He also has both thumbs aligning down the frame. Again, the more you have all your thumbs and fingers aligned down the sight or the bore, the more that you're going to have some basic combat accuracy. How does that feel? Does that feel comfortable? Great. Now, he has a very isosceles style, both arms out kind of style. I have some shoulder injuries. I had to make some adjustments. I've had a wrist surgery. I have to relax a little bit my right hand. I've had to make changes over the years. You have to evolve, right? We age, our body changes, we have different ergonomics. So that doesn't work quite with me. I have to relax my left arm ever so slightly, otherwise my shoulder starts to fatigue, especially if I'm searching a building or doing anything that takes time. Right, so grip, and then we have sight alignment. Now, it's not much we can show you here with him. You can go and holster. But on sight alignment, sight picture is going to be two things. It's going to be number one, either you have iron sights. If you have iron sights, you're going to have your rear sight and you have your front sight. Same distance, amount of space, left to right and top to bottom. Some people think they have to cover their target with the front sight. You do not. You want your target to sit right on top of the front sight. Weapons are zeroed to put the bullet right on the top line of the front sight. Make sure that it is level with the rear sights, okay? Left, right, top, bottom. You want to focus on the front sight. That's what maintains accuracy for iron sights. Now, transversely, if you're using a red dot, you're looking through the red dot and you're going to focus on the target, not the red dot itself. You superimpose the red dot over the target, maintain coverage of the target, maintain focus on the target, put the red dot over the target, and that is your sight alignment, sight picture, right? Sight picture is the relationship between front sight, rear sight, and the target itself, which is again focus on the front sight. That is your sight picture with the target right over the top of the front sight. On a red dot, that red dot should be covering what you want to shoot. A little bit different nuances, right? We'll get into that on a separate video. All right, so what comes after stance, grip, sight alignment, sight picture? It's going to be breath control. I've taught this in my other video. I'll link it at the end on breathing control, rhythm, and shooting, but everybody's chest rises and falls at a different rate. His does, mine does. A lot of my shooting is about 2/3 of my breath being out. I have a son I've spoken about that holds his breath in until he shoots. It works for him, doesn't work for me. We're all going to get used to that. But that breath control is a relationship of you breathing out, settling your body while that trigger press is being pulled. So it's a and then the shot breaks. That's breath control, right? Next is trigger. You want your trigger going smoothly to the rear the whole time. The common thing that I see is people rush about 2/3 of the trigger like this, and then they pull the trigger. Or they go slow, go slow, go slow, and then they yank it. I don't want to get into detail, but that's because when your sight's moving, people want the gun to go off when they want it to go off. Don't. Let the gun go off when it needs to go off. Just make sure your trigger press is the same tempo at the beginning that is in the end. If it starts at X, Y, Z miles an hour, it should end in the same speed until you get better and better and better, and you can improve that tempo, right? We've talked about that in the rhythm tempo video. So trigger press. The other thing with trigger press is make sure that your relationship with your finger on the trigger is not too much or too little. Too much finger on the trigger causes you to pull the gun to the right. Not enough finger on the trigger causes you to push the round potentially to the left. Make sure that it is straight up and down. Lastly, on trigger press, make sure that you only move those top 2 digits. This digit here should never move. When that moves, look at how much influence it's going to have on the weapon itself versus just pulling the trigger to the rear. I see that mistake a lot when I work on trigger control with other people. So just food for thought when you're on the range to work on that. Okay, what comes after breath control and trigger? This is one that people leave off all the time or don't teach. It's called follow through or follow up. And what I mean by that is when you fire your first round, I see it all the time where people fire and they lose everything. Now they have to regain grip, sight alignment, sight picture, breath control, trigger squeeze, and go. It's not very efficient, it's not very fast, and you can lose accuracy, right? So what I recommend is once you fire, everything stays the same. The first 7 are the same as they were before, but all you're trying to do is find that sight alignment, sight picture again as fast as possible. Boom, find it. Boom, find it. Versus boom, you get out of the picture, you have to get back into it, right? It also has to do with trigger reset, and I don't want to get too advanced. This is a very basic overview, but once you pull the trigger to the rear and you hear an audible click, and then it cycles, a round is fired, if you let off the trigger, it'll actually do an audible click and it will reset. So I would fire, trigger reset, get back on it, find my sight picture, breath control, fire, trigger reset. The faster I can do that continuously, the faster I can shoot accurately, right? So those are the 7 basic fundamentals of marksmanship. We're going to stitch in some video, try and help articulate it, let you understand as best as possible. We also are probably going to hit the range, crank a few rounds off, maybe let them see what it looks like when they do something wrong so they can see how to correct a deficiency, because going to the range or doing anything or going to the gym should be about correcting deficiencies. If you're not learning and growing and correcting, you're stagnant. So progress, progress, progress over perfection. So anyway, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate Weston for being my model again. We'll see you at the range. Okay, here we are at the range. We're going to go ahead and put it all together. The 7 fundamentals of marksmanship. Number 1 is going to be your stance. All right, he's comfortable. Feet shoulder width apart. Primary leg back. Knees slightly bent. Okay, grip. Number 2 is grip. All right, great grip. Number 3 is sight alignment, sight picture. We're assuming he's got a great sight alignment, great picture. Breath control. Trigger squeeze with follow through. Okay. Do you see his fall through? The fall through was he got right back on target. He didn't change his stance, he didn't change his grip, he didn't change anything. He just got right back on target for what we call follow-up rounds or subsequent rounds. Great job, Weston. All right, guys, thanks for paying attention. Weston, thanks for being a good model. We'll see you next time.